It's a gorgeous South Florida morning here at the Palm Beach International. Perfect setting to test out the new Cooper Xeon RS3 G1 tires.
It's a pretty brave move to put these tires on straight-up race cars.
The race truck is the perfect scenario for this particular tire.
All day they were great, super predictable on the breakaway.
The tires, they seem like they have a lot of grip. You'll get a lot of use out of the tires.
For 15 seasons, the Castrol Toyota Racing Series has led the way in New Zealand motorsport. With 170 drivers and 276 races so far, the graduates have made their mark in international motor racing. This is the pathway for the world's young drivers. And this series hits the racetracks of New Zealand for 5 weeks every year on the quest to find the next world champion.
Parker Thompson, Kyle Kirkwood, 1-2, great stop. It's a sweep, back-to-back gap.
Road to Indy, race recap.
The Road to Indy, presented by Cooper Tires, started its final push to the championship finale by starting the program's West Coast swing at Portland International Raceway on Labor Day weekend. Overall, it was a weekend dominated by the Road to Indy scholarship winners, with 5 of the 6 main events being won by Hunter McElroy, Kyle Kirkwood, and Rinus VeeKay. Coming into the weekend, Indy Lights point leader Oliver Askew knew what he needed to do, and that was to stay out of trouble and score points. Despite some excitement in race 2, it was mission accomplished for the talented American. For VeeKay, making an impact was the plan, and he and his Juncos racing team were on their game, qualifying on the pole for both races. With their outright speed, Juncos was able to save a set of sticker Cooper tires for race 1, and Rinus took full advantage of the extra grip to power away to the lead. In USF 2000, they got a full half hour on the racetrack, but they all believe there's still lots there. It's not like they were able to get to 100%. They know that even personally, not just with the cars themselves, personally, they left time out there in just the 30 minutes.
Well, yeah, and it's a nice day out there. It's good conditions for qualifying. As it gets warmer this afternoon, it's going to get a little slippery. Now, are they going to be making adjustments? Are they going to go out in qualifying trim for the last 10, 15 minutes of this session, or are they just going to keep working and fine-tuning the car for the whole 30 minutes?
I don't think that the majority of the teams will really work on anything between a different qualifying setup right now or a different race setup, because it is the longer session. Really, it's all about just trying to get the balance and for their drivers to get comfortable with the cars. You mentioned the fact that it was slippery, and that's really kind of the feedback I got from all the drivers in USF 2000, that the track is just very, very slippery. Coming through Rainy Curve, for example, the off-camber left-hander turn number 9, car has a lot of oversteer there. The rear end wants to break loose on them. Overall, the track's just really slippery, as you said.
And it did break loose on a couple of people there this morning. Yeah, the track is slippery, and it's kind of a contradiction in terms. It's low grip, but yet it's a lot of tire degradation at the same time, which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
Well, I actually really like that, because obviously one of the key things is when it is low grip, you're not able to get the car to really plant with the downforce. That's when the tires start to slide across, right? It's not just it's either going to be understeer or oversteer, but just an overall slide at some points, and that's what grates that tire. That's what wears those tires down. And to be honest, these Cooper tires are so good, we don't have a lot of tire degradation. We don't design them to have that extra degradation like they do in the IndyCar program to kind of help out with the race storyline. But a track like this will wear these tires, and the drivers will need to be smart. Even though they're coming up through the Road to Indy, the development ladder, we're still teaching them how to handle their tires and take care of their tires over a race distance.
Well, they're going to slide a little bit and drift almost in a power slide. But with less grip, there's less chance to see a real snap spin, because it doesn't go from, a firm plant to nothing.
That's true.
In an instant.
I had a chance to talk with one of our USF 2000 drivers, 5 times a winner this year, Braden Eves, and that was kind of his feel on the thing, that they weren't quite there with the balance, so the car wasn't quite where it wants to be. But once they make some adjustments, you're not going to see the thing snap away. They don't believe if you do make a minor mistake. But here, first opportunity for the drivers in the Indy Pro 2000 to work through the corkscrew. I talked to the fastest driver in USF 2000, Colin Kaminsky, and he admitted, he said, the first time I came up to the corkscrew, I literally stretched my head, looked over the wheel to find out where to go coming over the hill.
Well, as you crest that hill, it's blind. You can't see it. It's just like as if the world falls away from you. You don't know what's on the other side of that crest.
And any driver will tell you, teach them there's the entry point, the exit point, or the apex and the exit point. You have to have your visual cues of where you're going to turn in. And the crazy thing about that was you come over the hill, your cues aren't anything that you would normally pick up. It's probably a tree or something in the background what you look at, which is amazing.
Yeah, and they're going to vary their lines quite a bit. It's pretty hard to get the same line going through there every time. It's just incredible if you watch them, particularly in an overhead shot. And once in a while we get those. You'll see what these guys are doing, and sometimes you'll see them at the bottom of that corkscrew down coming out of 8A, going into 9 side by side. And generally, if you've got the inside, you have the advantage going through that turn.
We'll see how these drivers race. First and foremost, though, it'll be a 30-minute practice session for drivers here in the Indy Pro 2000 category, essentially right in the middle of our road to Indy, USF 2000 firing things up. Then you move into Indy Pro. Once you've got proficient there, you make the move up to Indy Lights, and you're one step away from the NTT IndyCar Series. Here's the comparison, Dick. 180 horsepower in the drivers in USF 2000, those Tatis cars. The very same tub, the same actual chassis itself. We just hang more aerodynamics, more horsepower, bigger brakes, and bigger tires on the Indy Pro 2000. We bump it up to 275 horsepower for Indy Pro 2000, 450 horsepower for Indy Lights, and that's why we're seeing anywhere between a 4 to a 6 or a 7 second difference in lap times at all the tracks we go to.
Yeah, so as you're stepping up the ladder, the car gets quicker and quicker. More aerodynamic aids, as you mentioned, and also increased horsepower at each step of the way.
I like to say just more of everything. whatever we can give these drivers, it's more. And that's it. It's the idea is to step them up the ladder. They get more comfortable with the higher speeds, the shorter braking zones, the more, of course, more aggressive brakes as well. And that's what develops these drivers. That's why we continue to kick great pilots at the top end of this program who find their way to the NTT IndyCar Series.
And USF 2000, obviously a 2-liter motor, 4-cylinder. I'm looking at some of the speeds as they go under the WeatherTech bridge here at start-finish, and they're comparable to those GT3 Porsches that were going through there this morning. Some of the speeds I've seen low to mid 130s.
It's the power-to-weight ratio, right? We've got enough horsepower. We've got those aerodynamics. These cars are unbelievably nimble. They're not very heavy, as I said. Very similar motors. You work your way up into the Indy Pro programs. Better hardware, better electrics attached to it as well. Of course, 275 horsepower, as we said, here in Indy Pro. And like USF 2000, a pretty good battle for the championship. It's not quite as tight. USF 2000, our tightest battle. Indy Pro, 20 points between the first and the second place drivers. Kyle Kirkwood has gone on this run, winning 7 of the last 8 races. He has 382 points ahead of Rasmuth Lint, who has 362. It's a distant possibility, but he could do it. Kyle Kirkwood could secure the championship in race number 1 tomorrow. What's amazing about him is he gets on these runs. Last year in USF 2000, Dick, he was able to reset the single-season record with 13 race wins on the season, topping J.R. Hildebrand. So the guy's just been a winning machine over the last 2 years.
Now, it looks like everybody except the NTT IndyCar Series has 2 races this weekend.
Indeed. Yeah, we run double headers for these drivers. The only events where we run single races are at the oval events. We do the Carb Night Classic, which is the Friday before the Indianapolis 500. The Indy Lights drivers race the Freedom 100 on the big track. And then we all head out to Lucas Oil Raceway, the 5/8 mile oval out in Claremont, Indiana, for the Freedom 90 and the Freedom 75, which are the 2 races for the drivers in USF 2000 and Indy Pro. And then, of course, Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway, both Indy Lights and Indy Pro, a single race there. Otherwise, every other race we do, it's all double headers.
And to add to the drama, championships are up for grabs in all 4 of these open wheel series here this weekend.
And no doubt about that. And, you know, it's interesting. Obviously, a guy like Joseph Newgarden in the NTT IndyCar Series, he wants the championship. There's a lot of money up for grabs there for the title. He wants that crown, good for the resume. Really, for the drivers in the road to Indy, they're, to a certain extent, racing for their competitive lives. You know, a lot of these drivers don't quite have the funding to maybe move up that next step, but when you win a championship in the road to Indy, the big prize is the scholarship that takes you to the next level. For example, the driver who could win this championship at Indy Pro, he's going to win a scholarship of over $700,000 to move to Indy Lights in 2020. It just changes the driver's career.
Will that money cover a full season at Indy Lights?
It normally will almost cover it,
Close.
but very close. Yeah, the driver is going to have to come with bring a little bit more money, travel costs, that kind of thing. But everybody else steps up. Cooper steps up with tires for that driver as well. The engine lease coming from this series as well. And it's just exciting. You look at a driver, who has moved in like Oliver Askew. He finished third last year in the championship in Indy Pro. He's going to win the championship this year in Indy Lights. Renus VK won the Indy Pro 2000 championship last year. He's P2 in the Lights championship. It's the way we're developing these young drivers and kind of putting them into the limelight. I think that's the biggest thing because both those drivers, Askew and VK, getting a chance to test IndyCar machinery last month at Portland International Raceway.
And even for the drivers that are not in contention for the championship, it's a showcase where other teams from other series can watch what they do and maybe look at them as a future development driver they would want to bring to their team.
Well, it is just skill development. Before this Road to Indy came about and before the scholarships were there, people were still racing in junior formulas trying to work their way up the ranks. Then it wasn't all about trying to just get the scholarship. It was just really about getting the skills, developing your talent as a driver, being able to put together sponsorships and impress people and potentially getting some financial supporters and backers that will help push you forward. The scholarships are new. It's only been 10 years here in the Road to Indy. Before that, you did it because you needed to become a good race car driver. That's where you learn.
The other thing I'm seeing here, it looks like some of the teams have entries in multiple series.
Indeed. Yeah, there's a number of teams that do that. Juncos Racing runs in both the USF 2000, in the Indy Pro 2000 and the Indy Lights program. We know they have cars as well in the NTT IndyCar Series. They were able to qualify this year for the Indy 500 with Kyle Kaiser, a former Indy Lights champion. You have a number of teams that are in USF 2000 and Indy Pro as well, Exclusive Autosport being one of those teams. They run a program in USF 2000. They also run a program in Indy Pro 2000. And we'll see more drivers start to do that. Same with D-Force Racing. They have a USF 2000 crew, a couple drivers in Indy Pro too.
And 1/3 of the way through this 30-minute session, it is Parker Thompson from Red Deer, Canada, in the Able Motorsports car that is on top of the time chart at he just got bumped by Kirkwood.
He did.
Wow,
Parker
122.23.
Parker Thompson, a really solid young driver who we've watched come up through the ranks in USF 2000. He's a multi-time winner in USF 2000, was a winner last year as well with Exclusive Autosports in Indy Pro. He started the season off with 2 wins this year at the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. Similar to what he did last year, last 2 years actually was Exclusive Autosport, developing the new car and kind of working with that team. Doing the same thing with Able Motorsports. They were a brand new team to the Road to Indy this year. He partnered with Jacob Able, the son of the team owner. They're building the program for Jacob moving forward for 2020. And they brought Parker in to say, listen, you're the veteran. Drive our car. Let's work on this thing. Let's come up with the notes that we need for 2020.
And Thompson just took it back, knocked Kyle Kirkwood down to second. Thompson is the only driver under a minute 22. He's at 1:21.97. Kyle Kirkwood, 1:22.23, running in second in the number 28 car. And it's Rob in number 2, third at 1:22.3.
Parker Thompson leading the way. Kyle Kirkwood second. Stingray Rob in third. Rasmuth Lint, one of our points challengers, in fourth. And Moises de la Vera, the driver from Mexico, for D-Force Racing in fifth. Daniel Frost from Singapore for Exclusive Autosport in seventh. The Russian driver, Artem Petrov in the number 5 in 7th. Corey Enders in 8th. Matt Round-Garrido from England in 9th. And Antonio Saraval, the young Canadian, in the number 11, currently in the 10th position. Very early in the session, similar to USF 2000, these drivers just getting a feel for the track. So many of them have never driven anything here before. So really, even though they've probably been on iRacing or did some simulation, it's much different when you plummet through the corkscrew for the first time. Good shot here of turn number 1 and 2 as we say hello to you tuning in and watching on the Road to Indy TV app or potentially on roadtoindy.tv.
Yeah, Rob, just a half a second separating the top 5 drivers. It's just incredible. And remember, first time on this track, they're all that close.
And they're going to keep getting better throughout this session as well. And again, they'll run this first bit, right? They've been on track for 12 and a half minutes. Got to bring those Coopers up to temperature. You've got to get yourself to the point where you think that you're pushing. As I had said when I talked to Colin Kaminsky from USF 2000, he was P1. He said he left a lot of time out there. So he didn't even think he had the thing pushed to where he was really comfortable. He wasn't taking that car to anywhere close to 100%. These drivers will stay out there before they think they've got this, they got a really good feel for the car. Because if you're driving at 75% of its capability, you don't know really what it needs yet. You need to get up past 90 to really start pushing it. You're not going to know if it's got understeer or oversteer if you're cruising around. Did see one driver with a big tank slap coming through the rainy curve there. Yeah, that was a left-right. There was a lot of steering input there.
And somebody making a pit stop. That could have been the one that almost got sideways up there, top of the hill.
Charles Finelli coming into the pits in the 83. Parker Thompson coming into the pits as well, the number 8, I believe. Kyle Kirkwood in the number 28. Kirkwood, last year's USF 2000 champion. He's got the Mazda scholarship colors on the car still. Of course, Mazda was still our big partner last year and supported Kyle in his move with the scholarship.
Enders to the top.
Ooh. Corey Enders goes P1 here in the D-Force Racing Machine, 121.918. Enders had his best race of the year on the oval at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. A strong third-place finish there.
Talk about tight, 0.05 of a second between the top 3 drivers.
Yeah, still with a long way to go. We're just coming to the halfway point of this 30-minute run. Just to fill everybody in, these drivers in Indy Pro will be back on the racetrack for their qualifying run, a 20-minute session at 5:15. They'll follow Indy Lights and USF 2000. We'll have qualifying to cap off the day here for the Road to Indy action. Back on track tomorrow for USF 2000 qualifying race 2 at 8:40. Indy Lights at 9:15. And then Indy Pro 2000 qualifying 2 at 11 o'clock. Main events, first of the 2 main events starting in the afternoon. Indy Lights on track at 3:10. Love that shot. The iconic turns 1, 2, and 3 here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Still, you see the countdown clock there. 15 minutes to go in the run. Not surprising, Dick. We're seeing a number of drivers come into pit lane here. Parker Thompson, Kyle Kirkwood, Stingray Robb all into pit lane. What I like here, 4 different teams in the top 4 right now. Corey Enders for D-Force Racing. Parker Thompson for Able Motorsports, Kyle Kirkwood for RP Motorsports Racing, and Stingray Robb for Juncos Racing.
Stingray Robb.
You like that, don't you?
Now, did his parents name after a fish or a Corvette?
It's a Corvette. They're big Corvette fans, but also I believe the connection was one of his grandfather's names was Sterling, and one grandfather I believe his name was Ray. So it's kind of Sterling Ray, bring it together. We love Corvettes. I get asked that question all the time, and I'll tell you the story. I've been following Stingray since he was probably 9 or 10 years of age running go-karts. So I remember being at a race the first time I saw him. It was a Winter Series event. I think we were in Phoenix, Arizona. And, of course, I'm looking, as you would, looking at the driver roster, and I'm looking at live timing. It says Stingray Robb. And I'm not much for saying someone's nickname if they put it in the registration. We'll use the nicknames, but don't put it on live timing. So I'm like, I'm not calling this kid Stingray. So I said, in 8th position is Ray Robb. So we go through the session. I wrap it up, top 10, wherever he was. Ray Robb, P7. Finished off, at lunchtime, I'm walking around, get myself something cold to drink, and here comes this little 9-year-old. He's on a mission, coming to talk to Mr. Howden, the announcer. And he said, Mr. Howden, my name is Stingray. It's on my birth certificate. I'm Stingray Robb. And I said, Stingray, I'll never make that mistake again. I do appreciate you coming. He was very polite, and I've had a chance to follow his career ever since. A great
polite,
young man.
But firm.
But firm. But he's just, I'm telling you, you look at all the young men and women in the Road to Indy paddock, he's one of the absolute best. He's just such a great young man, focused, determined to become a race car driver, dedicated to it, and just really raised well. Just a really nice kid.
Well, when I asked the question about Fisher Carr, I would have guessed Carr because he's from Idaho, and I don't think there's too many stingray fish up there.
That's probably true. So everybody essentially into pit lane here in the top 7, other than Rasmuth Lint, who pulls into pit lane as I say that. So as we get to the halfway point, as I said, drivers now have that feel for the track. They've been able to get enough heat built in the tires. They've burned off some of the fuel a little bit. Now they're comfortable enough to push the car so they can come to pit lane and say, here's what I feel. This is what it feels like right now. What can we do? What are the first steps we make? Because in such a short session, you don't get a lot of time to make too many adjustments. Really kind of one mid-session adjustment's all you can really do. So you talk to your engineers, they come up with a plan, make that adjustment, back out onto the racetrack. And when we don't test here, It really comes down, Dick, sometimes to how good your baseline was. How do you roll off the trailer? If you finish this opening session in the top 5, you're going to call that a big win because you know you came off the trailer strong.
Yeah, they don't qualify until 5:15, as you had mentioned. You're talking about 5.5 hours from now. And, again, course conditions are going to change.
They are. And you know that from all the races you've announced here. And these drivers know that, too, because every time we've run with the IndyCar Series, which we do at all of our events, the track changes so much because IndyCar's coming back out again, right? They'll be on track.
They'll lay a lot of rubber down.
A lot more rubber again. And it always changes potentially the line, the way these guys take it, because our cars are, we have much less downforce, right? Much less horsepower. So we take a little bit different line into some of the corners, and sometimes the drivers will tell you they're crossing over that different rubber, the Firestone rubber from the Indy cars. It's every session they go out, they always say the first couple laps
it's an adventure.
A bit of an adventure. It's exactly the word I was going to use. Because you never know. You got to kind of have a feel for it and what the track's going to play. And then as the rubber goes down and gets brought up, the whole thing, it just changes the complexion with each session. And the IndyCar guys will tell you the same thing. If they go out after a different series that puts different rubber down, it's going to be different for them as well.
Yeah, some rubber doesn't blend well or mix well with rubber from another tire either.
True enough. Shot there at turn number 5, working their way back up here to turn 6. This will be a tough corner. This is a very fast corner for these drivers. A bit of a compression as they come through. You can see the car settling in. We'll occasionally see a driver go off to the driver right through that particular corner. We've seen a number of drivers locking it up coming into the entrance to the corkscrew, Dick, and that's them pushing the issue, right? Pushing the effort because, as we always say, you don't know where the edge is until you go over it. And these drivers want to push from the get-go.
I had someone tell me one time when I went through driver's school, if you don't spin, you're not going fast enough.
That's exactly right. That's true.
Got to push it.
More drivers coming into pit lane. Others, of course, potentially put fresh rubber on.
A little sideways coming out of 10. I don't know who this is coming into 11 now. It's a red car. Should be coming up the front straightaway.
Well, potentially one of the exclusive Autosport drivers, as you said, getting a little bit of exit oversteer. Hard to pick that driver up there. Potentially, here we go, coming down into turn 1 and 2. Back down the hill. We'll get a good look as they come across the side. Yeah, it's one of the exclusive Autosport cars, either Daniel Frost or Nikita Lastashkin. Nikita from Los Angeles, so a California boy. We've got 3 Californians in the Road to Indy here this weekend. We'll have them at the Cooper Tire stage for a Q&A tomorrow. I believe that'll be 12:15, just past the noon hour. If you're working your way over through the fan village, make sure you stop by the Cooper Tire stage. Get a chance to talk to the good folks from Cooper Tires. They've got some of the product on display. You can get signed up with the Cooper Tire girls. And we'll definitely do a couple of Q&As over there where we'll have some drivers in. We'll have a chance to talk with them. We ask questions of those who are coming to join us there. We give away some free hats usually if you ask a question. Just love the transition. And, of course, people watching on the app, look at the drop coming down. You had mentioned 4 stories, Dick, coming from the very top of the corkscrew. And you can see it. You just keep coming downhill all the way to turn number 10 over to turn 11. It's just an absolutely magnificent part of this racetrack.
You know, as you come down through the corkscrew, you can see on the long lens shot with the camera. If you don't know where the line is, just follow the black line from the tires. I mean, it pretty much tells you where everybody else is driving.
And indeed, that corner, turn 9, rainy curve, that off-camber deal where you're right there. The very start of this particular shot, you're seeing at the top of the S, you're seeing there, off-camber, and you'll see drivers work their way off the racetrack there. That's why the rumbles are out there. But, yeah, we've seen drivers. We saw one already in USF 2000 beached in the gravel because it doesn't take much to miss the corner entry there, and the car ends up going off.
Yeah, you lose it right at the exit of that turn. The rear end breaks loose. It comes around on you, and you can't save it.
All right, expect to see some time start to fall here again. We have about 8 minutes remaining in this one and only practice session for the drivers in the Indy Pro 2000 Championship presented by Cooper Tires. These drivers, many of them, of course, plying their trade, learning the skills in USF 2000. Looking at the group at the top here, I want to say 7 or 8 of the top 10 all coming through USF 2000. Parker Thompson leading the way now, a winner in USF 2000. Kyle Kirkwood was last year's champion in USF 2000. Corey Enders ran USF. Stingray Robb jumped straight into what was then the Pro Mazda category. Daniel Frost, 3 races last year with exclusive Autosport in USF 2000. Nikita Lastashkin ran as well with USF 2000. As did Rasmuth Lint last year in Pabst with Pabst Racing. Moises De La Vera, 9th and 10th, Jacob Abel and Artem Petrov, no. But, yeah, so many drivers coming through USF 2000 because that particular package, the horsepower it has, the downforce it has, the braking capability it has, all sets you up to be able to make a calculated move to Indy Pro. And as we've seen with Kyle Kirkwood, 13 wins last year, it's almost like he hasn't missed a beat, Dick.
And each step up the ladder, as we mentioned before, gives you more power, more driver aids. It also requires a little more skill on the part of the driver.
Yeah, no doubt it does. You reset your competitive comfort level, as I like to say, because any driver would tell you when they first get into USF 2000, it's a fast race car. When they first drive the Indy Pro, wow, this is a really fast race car. But if they were to take a step back to USF 2000, everything would happen slower. And as you step up, you rewire your mind to be able to handle those higher speeds and the need for quicker reaction times because everything's happening faster.
Are these drivers allowed to compete in more than one series on a given weekend?
They can. I don't really have ever seen have anybody do it. It's such a time commitment. It's a cost commitment as well because obviously it costs a lot of money to run any program. No, we don't normally see, I don't think we've ever really seen anybody drive, actually race in both series throughout a full weekend. I think guys have driven different cars. Maybe somebody in lights testing a USF 2000 car. We've seen that before. And we have seen some drivers jump up and then jump back. If there's an opportunity to run something, they'll maybe jump up to Indy Pro and come back and run their USF 2000 car.
Well, I was thinking for some of the teams that have entries in both series, if they had one of their drivers in another series was ill or couldn't make it, could they grab someone from the other series and put them in that car?
We've seen that happen only that someone has maybe tested a car on a
just
Friday.
In testing.
Yeah, if somebody couldn't make it on a Saturday. Thompson still on top, 121.522. Again, no points going out for being quick in practice. That'll happen in qualifying where one bonus point is offered up to the fast qualifier. Parker Thompson comes into the championship currently in the third spot. A long shot for Parker Thompson to win this championship. There are enough points up for grabs for him to go to second. He's not going to be able to win the championship. Let me reiterate that. Only 66 points up for grabs. He could potentially go to P2, but it's probably not going to happen. He's going to be battling with Daniel Frost and Stingray Robb for third, to hold on to third. We've really come down to a two-driver race in both USF 2000 and Indy Pro. Indy Lights, as you've probably heard already, Oliver Askew really just has to start both races to win this championship. So looking for some fast times to lay down here right now. Kirkwood in second, back by just 15 hundredths of a second. Thompson P1, 121.5.
Kyle Enders third in the 7 car, then Stingray Robb fourth in number 2, and Frost in 68, fifth as we get into the final 4 minutes of this session. Just a little more than 4 minutes before the checkered flag waves.
Shot there of coming to the entry and then down into the corkscrew.
Did you see that wiggle up there at the entrance of the corkscrew?
That's it. A couple drivers, maybe a little wiggle on the entry. One there, Artem Petrov, the rear end getting away on him a little bit. There's Antoine Comeau coming through for Turn 3 Motorsports. Good shot here from the corkscrew, and you really get a chance to see the way the car dances around. They're on the brakes. They're trying to make sure they have the right turn in, trying to pick that mark. And again, they've only been on the racetrack for 26 and a half minutes. They're just still getting a feel for this track. No test time whatsoever. Coming across the line there. I want to say that was Stingray Robb and Daniel Frost. Frost in the number 68, Stingray Robb in the number 2. Everyone getting a feel for this racetrack. Less than a second separating the top 8 drivers at this point. Philippe Dennis in the number 91, who is a local driver, lives very close to the track here in Monterey. Making his debut weekend with Exclusive Autosport, currently running in the 14th position in the number 91. He's 2.4 seconds back. I guarantee he'll lop a ton of time off after he gets a chance to debrief with the team. Really his first opportunity to even sit down with the engineers after a session. So I'm excited to see what Philippe could do. He's run with Fat Boy Racing earlier in the year.
How much input does the engineer have in the car setup as opposed to what the driver likes and feels?
I think it's a little bit different. I think when you're in the IndyCar program, because the driver has so much experience, the engineers will lean a lot more on the driver feel, and maybe they'll set the car up more for the driver feel. When it comes to the, obviously coming up through the ranks, every year there's a different driver in your car when you're working your way up the ranks.
So they have a setup, and I know a lot of engineers will say, listen, this is what worked last year. This particular setup really, really worked. For a young driver, that's probably what you're going to get. This is the car that works. We won here last year. We were really fast last year, and this setup, figure out how to drive it. Until you're with a team for maybe a couple of years, you have to develop that trust where the engineer will say, listen, I believe what you're telling me, so let's set the car more up to what you want.
Because drivers have different driving styles.
Most definitely. Yeah, most definitely.
The engineer may say, this is a great setup. It worked for us last year, but it may not work for that particular driver. But from what you're saying, he's going to have to adapt to it because that's it.
I think that
initially, at least.
Yeah, especially when you're a young driver. If you're making your debut in USF 2000 coming out of the karts, you're not going to tell the driver, the engineer, this is how I want the car to drive. He's going to say, well, listen, that's not the way these cars work. I've been doing this for 20 years. This is your first or second race. Here's what we'll do. I'm going to give you the greatest car. I'm going to try to teach you as well, because it's a lot of teaching. It's not like in the IndyCar program where you've got professionals that are around. Let's say we're talking about Rob Edwards, the strategist, and Jeremy Millis, the engineer, and Alexander Rossi. All that experience that comes together, they really rely on what they get from Alexander, right? They want a car setup that makes Alexander happy, that makes him comfortable. It's so weird. It's like being let's go back to the baseball reference. It's like being the manager or the coach at a single A baseball team. You're still teaching that player. You're still coaching that player. So, a lot of these guys have driver coaches in the road to Indy, but even more so, that engineer is going to be teaching the driver what every adjustment they make does to the race car.
So they're going to school, and when they're in the car, class is in session.
That is exactly right. This is the justification for higher education right here.
And that's I wonder if you can get a scholarship.
No.
Maybe a grant, a loan, student loan.
You get a scholarship if you win. Let's put it that way.
Less than 30 seconds to go.
Parker Thompson's still on top, and I'm surprised we didn't see any more drivers go quicker. Now, that said, I'm not on pit lane. I wasn't able to see when they came up past us. Maybe we didn't see a lot of drivers going on fresh rubber because we're very similar to where we are. They may hold off. They started the session on a carryover set, a used set that they kept from our last race, which was the Grand Prix of Portland. They were able to use that. Again, time winding down. We'll look for the checkered flag to be thrown here at start-finish here momentarily. The starter has grabbed
it's in
the
hand.
White and black. Yep. We'll see that momentarily. There's a good shot of the drivers again coming out of the rainy curve. 9, 10, 11, the final corner as they come back onto the front straightaway. And indeed, the checkered flag flying. Drivers working their way back around. One driver coming through. Parker Thompson. A couple drivers have potentially blown the checker here. Now, that'll be interesting. If you blow the checker, I have a feeling that you may get penalized for some time in qualifying.
Somebody just got a full black flag.
I saw that 2 guys got a full black flag, went by for another lap. Kirkwood coming in. I'm sure they'll have a look on the video whether or not Parker Thompson saw that checkered flag, because they would have been given that on the back part of the racetrack to come back in here. Parker Thompson, though, with the fast lap, a 121.522. Kyle Kirkwood second, 121.6. Corey Enders in third. Stingray Robb ends up fourth. Nikita Lastishkin in the number 90, jumping up to P5. Nice job there for Lastishkin, the fastest driver in the exclusive Autosport trio. Moises De Oliveira, 6th position. Rasmus Lint in 7th. Daniel Frost, 8th. Jacob Abel, 9th. And Artem Petrov from RP Motorsport Racing rounding out your top 10. Top 8 drivers within 9/10 of a second. Matt Round-Garrido wrapping up in 11th. Antonio Saravalli in 12th. Philippe Dennis jumping up to 13th, able to find 3/10 on the lead time there, 2.1 back. On Antoine Camo in 13th, and Charles Finelli rounding out the top 15. There's your fast 6. Thompson, Kirkwood, Enders, Rob Lastishkin, and De Oliveira. Different teams as well. Parker Thompson from Able Motorsports, Kyle Kirkwood from RP Motorsports. D-Force Racing putting 2 of their drivers in, both Corey Enders and Moises De Oliveira. Stingray Robb, the quickest of the duo at Juncos Racing, P4. And Nikita Lastishkin from Exclusive Autosport, P5. Good session overall, but again, because they've never been here before, 0 testing whatsoever, whether it be official or unofficial. We did not have a promoters test day on the Thursday. Most of these drivers, if not all, have not yet grabbed full pace on this particular session. They're going to be finding way more speed, really getting themselves more comfortable when they qualify this afternoon at 5:15. As I said to Dick before, it's a 20-minute session. 50 minutes of that's probably going to be more practice before they drop the hammer for the last 5.
Yeah, but it's an even playing field for everybody.
That's
They're
very true.
all in the same boat.
So indeed, done here now for the Indy Pro 2000. We've seen the first 3 sessions for the trio of categories in the Road to Indy presented by Cooper Tires. Practice for USF 2000, Indy Lights, and Indy Pro. All 3 will come back again this afternoon starting at 3:55. Indy Lights qualifying for race 1, USF 2000, and Indy Pro 2000 all qualifying for the first of 2 races that they'll have here this weekend.
It's a gorgeous South Florida morning here at the Palm Beach International Raceway. The perfect setting to test out the new Cooper Xeon RS3 G1 tires.
It's a pretty brave move to put these tires on straight-up race cars.
The racetrack is the perfect scenario for this particular tire.
All day they were great, super predictable on the breakaway.
The tires, they seem like they have a lot of grip. You'll get a lot of use out of the tires.
For 15 seasons, the Castrol Toyota Racing Series has led the way in New Zealand motorsport. With 170 drivers and 276 races so far, the graduates have made their mark in international motor racing. This is the pathway for the world's young drivers. And this series hits the racetracks of New Zealand for 5 weeks every year on the quest to find the next world champion.